This video is part of an ongoing series of book reviews from the perspective of the magical philosophy of Thelema. What the Buddha Taught by Walpola Rahula. This book is an excellent example of the apologetic literature associated with Western Buddhism, so called by Slavoj Žižek and others. This is the commodity appearance taken by Buddhist traditions as representationally permitted within the context of globalized capitalism, within which Buddhism functions on a mass scale as a lifestyle brand, competing with other brands in the marketplace of religions. As a result, in the United States, Buddhism has been used as a template to reinscribe and therefore also rebrand a postmodern version of white Protestant cultural identity that repeats old assumptions even while it legitimately abandons its previously Christian framing. Given this situation, it is all the more urgent to return to the oldest accessible form of Buddhism, as taught and practiced in the Theravada Sangha, codified in the initial version of the Tripitaka, which was compiled in the Pali language about 100 years after the career of the historical Buddha. Access to this stratum of texts permits an evaluation that is both open to the ongoing relevance of Buddhism, while also acknowledging the alien, foreign quality of some concepts and arguments from a modern perspective. My old professor, Burt Lancaster of the East Asian Studies Department at Cal Berkeley, liked to describe Buddhism as a religion of lists. What the Buddha taught, therefore, appropriately structures its discussion around the explication of a few major examples of these lists. Specifically, the book focuses on the Four Noble Truths as the core of the primitive Buddhist tradition. The Four Noble Truths, in turn, both imply and presuppose the doctrine of no-self, or anatman, as well as the law of dependent origination, which states that for every effect there must be a cause, and therefore that if one removes a cause, its effect will also cease. The first noble truth is that existence is suffering, meaning that life invariably involves dukkha, defined as the pain, sorrow, or misery due to the quality of imperfection, impermanence, emptiness, and insubstantiality possessed by all existing things, or dhammas. The word Dhamma is cognate with the Sanskrit word dharma and means truth. It is therefore used to describe the Buddha's law because it is a teaching concerning the truth. The Buddha's teaching that impermanence is the truth of existence is also expressed by the concept of anatman, summarized in the Dhammapada by the statement, all dhammas are without self. The second noble truth is that dukkha is caused by tanha, which is thirst and craving arising from desire. This causal relationship is then further analyzed by the 12 links in the chain of dependent origination, Pali Padika Samupada, or translated as conditioned genesis by Rahula. The deepest root of desire is described by the first link in the chain as ignorance, the Pali word avidya, or Sanskrit avidya. Its alternative is the wisdom of insight into impermanence, which is the Pali word panna, or Sanskrit prajna, which is cultivated by vipassana meditation, also called mindfulness meditation. This practice is possible because of the third noble truth, which is that of the cessation of dukkha, meaning that all suffering has an end because of its impermanent nature. The fourth noble truth then further follows that suffering is ended through the cultivation of wisdom, or prajna, and there is a further list of 8 virtuous activities to be practiced towards this end. From the perspective of Thelemic magic, a few details of this schema stand out as particularly relevant and also as critically questionable. The doctrine of no-self is arguably a primary inspiration for Crowley's concept of the Kabbalistic zero as his ultimate ontology. Another point of affinity is that Buddhism and Thelema are both universalist traditions, which include within their religious, so-called cultural expressions, an elite core group of adept practitioner realizers, which is in principle open to all, but which in practical circumstances is self-selective in membership. Also, Buddhism, Thelema, and Vedanta as well can all meaningfully be described as Gnostic, insofar as they all cultivate the overcoming of some version of avidya, ignorance, in favor of a certain knowledge that imparts salvation. Prajna, the true will, and samadhi all impart a variety of self-liberative gnosis, in contrast with faith-based traditions such as Christianity, where right belief is emphasized over and even against knowledge. More critically, or problematically, the methodology of Buddhist logic emphasizes a certain style of negative theology, through a rhetoric of creating infinite regresses in argumentation. This is intended to clear the mind from doubt so that practice can continue without distraction. This strategy is especially explicit in the later Prajnaparamita literature and the Madhyamaka philosophy of Nagarjuna, but is also abundantly evident in the earlier codified Theravada scriptures discussed in What the Buddha Taught. No doubt nobly intended, the ideological ambiguity of the way these rhetorical procedures suspend critical inquiry should be obvious. By positing truth, enlightenment, or ultimate reality as being beyond language, traditions are reified and protected from change. They are also thereby insulated from relevance, becoming hermetically sealed bodies of doctrine. Western Buddhism has always been particularly fascinated by and dogmatically insistent about the negative theological tendency in Buddhist logic, I think in part because it permits the perpetuation of a version of Protestant Christian faith. In the interest of the Gnostic quality of Buddhism, in common with Thelema, and in contrast with Christian fideism, I think it is important to be critical towards the use of logical regress in traditional Buddhist texts, as well as in modern Western Buddhist discourse. In conclusion, I think the Buddhist doctrine of Anatman is the immediate source for Crowley's concept of the Kabbalistic zero as the ontological horizon of Thelemic philosophy, thereby replacing the metaphysical unity of Platonism and Vedanta that more usually serves as the absolute in Western Hermetic traditions. Also, although mindfulness meditation is explicitly assigned to the dominus liminis grade of the AA system of attainment, the basic ideal of this practice underlies the whole of magic, insofar as the great work is to refine the true will, which I think is analogous for at least all practical intents and purposes, with the cultivation of prajna through vipassana, as the insight into the magician's self-nature as what the Buddhist tradition calls Buddha mind.